I miss that Sunday dinner. I miss that culture. So your comedy really brings that back. So give us some of your inspiration and why you got into comedy originally.
I've been wanting to be an actor my entire life since I'm a little kid growing up here in Scotch Plains.
Yeah.
And I went to acting school here, and then I went to acting school in New York. I went to the American Academy in New York City, Herbert Berghoff Studios. And one of the band teachers, when I was 15, he saw that I was very serious about becoming an actor. He actually took me to the city and showed me around and introduced me to some influential people in the business. So I grew up doing TV commercials when I was like in my early teens, early 20s. And then I went to California to try to get in film and television. And although I had some success, I was actually on As the World Turns for a good year.
Oh, nice.
But I turned into stand-up comedy because I saw the comedians at the Comedy Store had a better chance of earning a living touring the world, entertaining as live performers. So
Yeah.
I figured, well, why don't I just play the role of a stand-up comic, because I really didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And away I went. And then I realized I really like performing live. It's a great, great drug. And you can actually build a career as a comedian faster than building a career as an actor, because you're waiting to go on auditions. You're waiting to get a job. You're waiting tables, actually. So I said, I'm going to do the stand-up thing. So now when I perform as a comic,
You're
I
waiting.
roles as an actor anyway.
Well, yeah, and I mean, especially nowadays, I think it's easier to cross over, cross over as a comedian to an actor versus actor to a comedian. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Some people have trouble crossing back and forth. I always just created the idea that I was an actor playing the role of a stand-up, and I created this stand-up character. However, now 30 years into it, I am more me on stage than I ever was.
Yeah.
And I love entertaining. And then you can actually start creating more jokes and a sitcom and a podcast or anything,
Yeah.
because you perform live.
Now, you got into comedy, like talk about how kind of why you got into it. And you've been doing this for a little while, and you've been very successful. It's funny because like it's one of those things that when you are successful in that space, you have to travel a lot because you're in demand, right? Versus if you're not doing well. But with social media, right? Obviously, we had the pandemic, and people were kind of had to stay in one place. You kind of took advantage of social media because you're all over it, which I love. How was comedy kind of before social media and later the pandemic? And how is it now, and how have you adapted to that?
Well, I don't know. That's a double-edged sword in a way, man, because when I was cutting my teeth as a comic, you were handing out flyers on a street corner, begging people to come see you.
Yep.
It was also the time where the comedy clubs was the rage. So no matter who was performing, everybody was going anyway.
Yep.
And then you had to be popular. Then you had to be famous. Then you had to have HBO. Then you had to have Comedy Central.
Yeah.
God bless you if you got on the Tonight Show. So the 90s was very, very rough.
Yep.
I ended up getting on a couple of talk shows, and I did a joke on the Byron Allen show. I think this might be 10 years ago, when they were looking for Osama bin Laden. So I just happened to stand up on the show and out of nowhere said, if there was an Italian president, he'd have whacked Osama bin Laden and came home with the rugs. And it hit 14 million people, and I was getting booked all around the country. But there still was no such thing as Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, none of that. There was just YouTube. I really didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I just took the work and said, I'm coming.
Yeah.
And then you end up doing the joke. And to this day, people still ask me to do it. And I've have tons and tons of new material. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. Do something completely different.
Yeah.
So we developed a TV series about me running for president and called it Make America Italian Again.
I love that.
That ended up hitting